Hey guys, welcome back to Throwing Wrenches Garage. Tom here.
And Declan.
He's back. He's back. He was gone for a video.
Yeah.
I promise he's back. He didn't move out or anything.
No, not yet.
We just had a bunch of little stuff that I was doing and frankly just didn't want to bug him, was getting the stuff done. But now it's time for us to do something more significant. So what are we doing today, Declan?
Taking out the radiator and replacing it?
We are taking out the radiator and replacing it. Why would you take out the radiator and replace it? Well, I'll show you. Take a look at what we got now. There's nothing wrong with this actual radiator. So this is the Murray radiator that we picked up in a rush from O'Reilly's. It's not the greatest radiator. It's frankly the cheapest one we could possibly find. And that's what I was looking for at the time. We just wanted to get this running and out on the road, but it was never really my intention for that to be the final piece that we had in here. The bigger problem is the fans. Let me show you the wiring mess going on with this over here. This is the nonsense that I've had to rig up, and it's not even cleaned up yet, right? This makes me uneasy because it's so jury-rigged and so gross, but we were doing it in a desperate rush to just get this car out the door and driving. And basically, it's got the fans wired up so that as long as the key is in the run position, those fans are on. And that's not the best position for us to be in. What we want, and what ultimately this car was set up to do originally with the whole TPI motor and all the ECM modules, etc., was to turn the fans on only when the coolant had gotten to a certain temperature. Once the coolant gets hot enough, then the fans kick on to help cool that coolant through the radiator and send it back into the engine to cool it. So the challenge that we run into with the fans running all the time, especially in the winter, is that it's actually going to cool it too much. All right, so you're going to end up with coolant that's really cool running through the radiator, running back into the engine. It just makes it more difficult for the engine to heat up. And then there's also a power draw. So it's going to be constantly drawing that power on the motor, which is not great for the electrical system. It's going to make the alternator just work all the time to pump in that energy. And these fans, well, they draw a lot of energy. So between those two things, the smart thing for us to do is to install a new fan controller. So I looked for a new fan controller and was ready to buy one, but that's when my friends from Evil Energy reached out. When the guys at Evil Energy found out that we needed a better set of cooling fans and radiator for the Camaro, they hooked me up. So the folks over there sent me a link to this radiator. This is the 4-row high-performance aluminum radiator from Evil Energy. Now this is intended for a number of applications, but one of them is third-gen Camaros and Trans Ams. I've taken some measurements on this thing with everything in place. This is going to be tight, but I do believe it's going to fit. And the radiator is pretty awesome. And it's also coming with the fans, which means we're going to solve some of our cooling issues. So this comes with all the wiring that you need, the relay, circuit breaker, connections, and the thermostatic control that we're going to put inside the manifold, the intake manifold, so that we can get temperature readings so this thing will click on and off at the right temperatures. So this is what we're going to install in the car, and everything should be better once this goes in. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is disconnect the lower radiator hose. So I've already got the bin down there, so you're just going to disconnect this hose by loosening this clamp. And the coolant is going to sort of spill out of it, so don't freak out. Oh, let me get the light.
Do you have to get it off fully? Because it's pretty loose, so do I just unplug the thing?
Can you like actually spin the clamp on there?
Yeah.
Then just try to squeeze that hose off of that tube then. And it will gush.
Oh.
You might have to sort of twist.
Wait.
And just kind of work it off. There's no simple way. So Declan's trying to remove the lower radiator hose here. I've already played the game of clean the drain bucket so that we can try to reuse as much of this coolant as possible. Man, that's stubborn, huh?
Yeah.
Do you want, I can get you a screwdriver. You can try to pry this off the tube with one. Oh, you got it, you're getting it. I would try to pry it with one hand and pull with the other.
Can't even
Just
get anything in there.
no. Well, it's going. It's in a really tight spot too. Success. Okay, you can aim that hose down into the bucket because there'll be a little bit of fluid trapped in there.
Well, I actually can't.
Oh, you can.
But
Okay, we can wait. Gross. Nice work, though. Good job.
coolant is
Strong one.
everywhere.
Is it mostly getting in the bucket?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's hitting everything on the way down.
Oh, yeah. Well, I kind of expected that much. I just want it mostly in the bucket. A quick break in the action, guys, to tell you about some new merch alerts. Now, I know I haven't updated the site in a long time. There's been the same merchandise up there for a while. We are updating it now. We're going to get rid of some old stuff, and we're bringing in some new stuff. And this is the first of the new stuff that we're bringing in. It's the new, or a new, Throwing Wrenches Garage logo, kind of an old-timey throwback look to the logo, and a new saying on the back. Not sure what I did, but it works now. The rallying cry and slogan of all middling, no good home mechanics. So you can go onto the line now, onto the site, and pick up these shirts. These are in the Gildan heavyweight tees. They're a good shirt. They don't shrink a lot. They wear well. I really like them. They're one of my favorites in general. So head onto the site and pick one of those up and keep your eyeballs hooked out and looking on the site, because we are going to be releasing new hoodies and some new t-shirt designs coming up here in the next couple months, or next couple weeks actually. So keep your eyes out for those new merch alerts, and take a look. Maybe it's something for Christmas. Who knows? All right, thanks guys, back to the action. So now we're going to take this cover off, and I'll get the upper radiator hose while you do that.
What size is it?
It is the 10mm bolts, I believe, and I'll need that. You can use electric if you want. There's also, though, two, you're gonna have to use a ratchet for them. There's two bolts here for the fan mounts that you're gonna have to take off. And I got a little bucket there to capture those. Whoa. Does it overflow in the bucket?
No.
Good grief. Good grief, Charlie Brown. This one's a different size.
Last night they had a movie on a projector.
Oh, really? At the party?
Yeah. It was White Chicks.
All right. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to use that radiator hold down again. What'd you drop?
One of the screws. No.
Okay. All right, so now, next step in the mix. Oh, that top hose. Yep, that one's got to come off too. Do you need this?
It's not gonna work.
Screwdriver? So now that we have everything off, radiator is mostly drained, although I'm sure there'll still be some more schmutz that comes out of this when we pull it.
Oh yeah, of course.
The next step is to remove the transmission cooler lines. So we've got to take those off.
Did those?
Yep. But before we do that, we're going to slide the coolant drain bucket out, and we're going to transfer that coolant. The radiator has prostate troubles. Just continuing to sort of seep out. We're going to pull that bin out. I can still see fluid in that hose. There you go. Because that's trapped in the engine.
This is gonna.
It should be fine as long as it doesn't pour out anymore. So the reason that we're going to take that bucket out of there now is that that coolant is clean. It might have some debris in it, but we can just filter that out. But as soon as we take the transmission cooler lines off, it's going to drip transmission fluid in there, and then we can't use it. No. Let's slide that thing out. I think it has to actually come towards you, if I remember, because your air dam's in the way.
This bucket?
Yep. So next step is the transmission coolant lines. So we're going to take them off at the radiator. It's a 1/2-inch nut. These are line wrenches. So you can see how they have a, they sort of come all the way around. It's to help keep from stripping these nuts, because those nuts like to strip really, really easily. So pick your poison. Lefty loosey, righty tighty.
I was right the first time.
Yeah, you got to do it like from the perspective of like from the passenger seat of the car looking at it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
Alright, I know I'm gonna like pull up on it and I'm gonna bash my hand against the radiator.
No, good job. You're getting better at this. Bingo. Now the harder one is the bottom one. Do you see it?
Are you kidding me?
No, not kidding.
How do I even get to that?
Ah. Let's get the fans off. I think if we get the fans off, we might have more room in there.
I don't, but okay.
All right. You don't concur?
No. I think that's the least of our worries right now. I think the fact that this is there, that's the problem.
And we might have to jack this up and get it from underneath. That might be the trick.
Oh, but then we have to jack up the car.
Yep. I think that's how we did it before. All right, so then in that case, do you want to chalk the wheels in the back? Chalk one set of wheels in the back? I'll grab the jack, which I just put away.
That'll take about 2 years.
It was even worse putting it on there. Trust me, I've taken that off and I've put it on. Putting it on is way worse.
Oh, well, you know we have to do that, right?
Yep.
Or I say we.
Your car, remember? I'm helping you.
Uh-huh.
There you go. Done. All right, fans are out. And the trans lines are disconnected. Can you just pop them out of their fittings there?
No.
All right, then this, give me a hand lifting it up. Okay. I think we're ready for test fitting. Do you want me to install and you can watch to make sure everything clears? Or do you want to do it the other way around? It's up to you.
No, I don't care.
You want me to put it in?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna
Then
get
I
over to
can
that
blame
side.
you if you do something wrong.
Perfect.
Isn't it the other way?
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Goes in this way.
Yep.
I'm flying a little blind here, dude.
Yeah.
More than a little blind.
Going on the line.
Can you pull those out of the way?
I don't know, maybe it's better if I do that. 'Cause
Just steady this. Okay, these AC lines are going to be the issue, I think. This might not fit. Put it on the other edge. $33. Okay, we can probably set this down on the ground again because I think we're going to have to do a little bit more thinking. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't look like the radiator is going to actually fit on its own. It's just a little bit too wide. When I did the measurements, I did it with everything in place. What I missed was this very limiting measurement right here, which is basically, I mean, they're not frame rails because this is a subframe car. But this is where the inner fender sort of core support area sort of folds down. So there's no way to cut that back, I mean, without doing serious surgery and metal fabrication, which we are not going to do for this. So that unfortunately means we can't use the full radiator that was sent on to us, which I'm not sad about necessarily because we'll use it again. I mean, that's going to get put aside, guarantee you we will be able to use that in the future. But what it does mean is we need to figure out another way to use these fans, and I think you have that figured out. I think what we're going to be able to do is use the shroud. So I think we're going to be able to lift the shroud off, put it on the old radiator, and make this happen. We'll probably have to do a little bit of fabbing work with that to make that function, to make that work. But that's okay. A little bit of fab work never hurt anybody, and we can make that happen. But that's the goal right now. So we'll take that shroud off and see what it takes to get that shroud onto the old radiator and make everything fit. All right, so you should be able to see this is the new shroud on the old radiator, and you can see here we got a little bit of an overhang, a few inches of overhang. So we're going to take some measurements, and ultimately I think we're just going to have to take a death wheel to the aluminum, to the shroud, to narrow that up. But I think what we're going to be able to do is get this shroud to sort of sit in here in between the tanks, so it should be actually a really good smooth fit when we're done. So that's what we're striving for. So we're going to take some measurements now. Okay, so this is the shroud. What was our measurement? It's 26 1/4, right?
Yeah.
In between, so in between the rails or in between the tanks on the old radiator is 26 1/4. Then we went ahead and measured the distance here to here, outside edge of the fan to the outside edge of the fan, and that is roughly, I mean, call it 25 3/4. It's probably closer to 25 1/2. Either way, it's good enough for us to do what I want to do, which is to cut the ends off of this. Now the downside will be this edge is folded down, so we won't have that anymore, which would be technically an air gap or an air leak. And I don't have any sort of tools to sort of make another bend break there. So but I'm not worried about that because we're going to get this thing to sit up against the radiator. So that actually should sit in between the rails and we won't need that return.
If you say so.
That's what my math is telling me now. Now let's see if this does what I thought it would do. It does. So I thought we could get it so that it fit right inside here, and it does. There. So now we just need to get some self-tappers into this, and then some nuts to space it
I
out.
know you broke your Gorilla Grips.
Yeah, I melted them actually. Yeah, I touched something hot, which, you know, don't do that.
What did you touch?
Metal. Turns out, metal gets hot when you cut it. So, you know, cautionary tale. Okay, so let's get some self-tappers for this, make sure they'll fit. No, that's not gonna cut it, we're gonna have to go with these guys. And we're gonna have to be pretty precise. And that one, I think we might self-tapper from the backside.
Is that what you think?
Maybe. What do you think?
I don't.
And try to avoid thinking as much as possible. I think we can just cut these tabs right off and then screw into the backside of this
Okay.
with a smaller self-tapper. Let's see about this. I want to get some locations marked out. Okay. So now we're just going to get to the back side of this bad boy. And these will be shorter self-tappers, so let me see what I got. Honestly, how good am I at this YouTube stuff? Just amazing. So not only do I give you a crappy camera angle of me drilling self-tappers into a radiator, but then I also missed the footage of us putting this radiator and shroud back into the car. Fortunately, you know, just like this self-tapper action, you didn't miss much. It actually went in nice and smooth because, well, frankly, this radiator had been in the car before and we knew it fit. And the shroud was actually thinner than the old radiator fans that were on there, so that went smooth. Now on to the next part that I did manage to capture. So somewhat predictably, the radiator shroud, the retainer, is not going to fit. Because it's not going to be able to cover this gap. So that would have been a problem using the other radiator or this existing radiator. We knew that was coming. So what we're doing is using a couple of straps of aluminum, and we're going to make some straps to retain the radiator in place. Declan's just figuring out what drill bit we have to use to cut through that strap to make sure we can anchor it on this side, and then we'll just run a self-tapper through here to retain it on top of the shroud. To bring you up to speed, the only passage or port on the intake manifold that's available to us is stripped out. No way we can get that off. I'm not messing with it tonight. So our only method or only option left to us to get this sensor installed is to go into the block, which is not ideal, or it's actually not the block, it's the head. Because going into the head, the temperature is always going to be a bit higher. So it just means the fans are going to kick on earlier and shut off later, but it's still better than what we have. So I need you to do this for me. What you're gonna do is apply thread sealant, that's that stuff. It's gonna come out it's like ketchup, it's gonna come out runny at first and then it'll get a little bit goopy. But you need to put some on those threads. Okay. You can put a little bit more around, like one loop around it. Brilliant. Okay, now thread it into that. Thread it in, get you some wrenches and tighten that up. Okay, now I'm going to put some more of this thread sealant around the bigger thread, and that's the part that I'm going to bolt in. So all the way around, like one loop is usually how I like to do it. You don't want to go crazy with thread sealant on pieces like this because it's relying on an electrical contact on a ground. So if you put way too much thread sealer on it, you could actually mess with the ground and then not get a signal. I feel like the little boy with his finger in the dike. While I started to wrap my head around the wiring for the relay, I had Declan put the gooseneck back on. We had taken it off already since we thought we had to put a new swivel gooseneck on there, but since we don't, I just had him clean off the old one and re-gasket it and put it back on. So I figured that was a good task for him to get used to doing on his own, and he did fine, and it let me read in peace. All right, so now I am able to hopefully get rid of a ton of wiring that we no longer require here. Yeah, this whole nest can go. Oh, look at how much cleaner it is over here already. All right, you ready to learn a little bit about wirings? Just a little.
Okay, that's enough.
Hold this for me.
Hold what?
Okay. Now, so we're going to hook up a relay. The relay is kind of a switch, kind of. You use it when you don't want to run a giant power lead all over the place. Because the more power you have to run to something, and the further away it is, the heavier the gauge of cable it has to be. So a relay is sort of a way of cheating that. So we are looking right now for a constant battery power source. So what I'm looking for here is for that to light up, and it's not yet, so hang on a second. Oh, see that? Mm-hmm. So I'm hooking up to the battery ground, and then testing the positive terminal to this, and with the key off, that's telling me I'm getting power there. Okay? So now, you can drop that one. See that brown wire? Grab this and poke the copper part of that gray wire, or that brown wire. Nothing, right?
Mm-hmm. Well.
No, it's grounding out to you. Okay.
Wow.
So that's good. So I know that's the ignition source that...
Wait, do I have...
That's the source that comes from the ignition. Okay? So...
Why did it do something when it connected to me?
Closing some sort of circuit. So, what that tells us, so the way that this relay works, right, is this is the relay itself here, this little box. Inside here, there's a little switch, like so. So you're running constant power in, right? So that you have power to this thing to keep it alive. You're running ignition power, so it's only going to ever turn on when the ignition power hits. But it's going to turn on and off when that sensor grounds it out. Surprise, surprise. More of me being a rubbish cameraman and an even more rubbish real-time narrator, so I'm back here in the voiceover booth. So what I'm doing here is trying to figure out how to actually get the fans wired. The relay wiring was, I thought, simple enough. That's already set up. But now I've got to actually get the fan wiring, so the two wires that are leading from each of the fans, connected to that relay. So there's two wires coming out of the relay, a ground and a power, that are going to the fans, but I've got two fans that need to be connected to that. Fortunately, there were already spade clips sitting on those wires coming out of the fans, and I had decided, once I looked at those spade clips and tested them out, that I actually have my own little electrical connector kit, and it has little block connectors that I could use already existing to just plug in, so I can have a quick disconnect from the fans if I ever need it, which is always a nice thing to have. And it's just going to make everything nice and clean, so there's just a nice clean connection instead of me soldering a bunch of connections together. So we just use those spade connectors inside this housing that I already had. Two blues, two blacks. So now we just need to make sure that we do the other wires that way. Insert engine noise here. So the mics died on us. We'd been working on this all day long, and apparently those mics just won't keep up with us working all day long. So here's where our audio cut out. But what we had Declan do was start up the car, and we worked it up to temp. Obviously just checking to make sure that we don't have any leaks and that nothing's going wrong and that everything still stayed pretty much the same, but also checking to make sure that those fans are going to kick on when they're supposed to. So first things first, they did what they were supposed to do, which is not turn on with the car. Great. Thumbs up. All systems go there. Then we let the car run for several minutes. I kept on checking it with an infrared thermometer just to make sure that it was getting up to temp and getting warm. And unfortunately, once it got up to temp, we found out that the fans were not kicking on. So we eventually just had him shut the car off and had to dig a little bit further. All right, so a little bit of a hiccup. Declan started it up and ran it, and we ran it up to temperature, and it got up to what, like about 220 on the dash reading. I only saw about 200 or so when I hit it with the infrared thermometer before I had to shut it off. But the fans were not turning on. Big surprise, I had it wired wrong. So I was wiring the ground straight to the ground, partially because that's the way the wires looked, and partially because I misread the schematic. Really, that ground should be hooked up to the sensor. So when the sensor hits its temp, it provides the ground, and that turns the fans on. What I had hooked into the sensor was what should have been plugged into a 12 volt run source. So what's on with the ignition. That's the other portion of the switch aside from the temp. So now I think we're set to give it another shot. And we also are going to test Declan's vents. So I jury rigged something up here. I did verify tearing his dash apart that there is no problem with anything disconnected. Everything looks like it's good there. But I did find out afterwards through some frustrated research that these things are actually vacuum actuated. And a couple of you guys said that in the comments too. So I've reconnected some vacuum lines here in the hopes that that's going to get us working again. I still don't know if that's right, but we're going to see. So it's hooked up to manifold vacuum, so it's only going to work when the car's running. There is a vacuum ball in here somewhere that we can rehook up, and then it should be able to run a little bit when it's not running. But we are going to check and see if both things are working, both the fans and that. We just took a temp reading on the engine. It's down like 150 at the thermostat housing and like 100 on the head. So we should be cool enough that I don't think the fans are going to come on right away, but we'll see. All right, you want to give it a shot? Keys are on the dash. Well, full-on success with the wiring. Honestly, it was kind of a boneheaded move. Just misread what that relay needed to do. This is one of those deals where I sort of outsmarted myself. I knew what I was supposed to do and I allowed myself to get confused. But effectively, I just needed to make sure that I had the grounding wire to the sensor feeding into the relay along with the key ignition power source feeding into the relay. Those two things need to be sort of on together in order to be able to trick the 12 volt constant power to be able to supply power to the fans. So with that rewired, this thing worked correctly. And with the car now pretty nicely warmed up, I decided this is a pretty good time to go ahead and reset the idle fuel mixture on the carb, which we never really did appropriately the first time. We had gone ahead and set the timing initially when we put the engine in the car, but we really just kind of very quickly set the carb, and I didn't actually set it with a vacuum gauge. So this is what I'm doing now. The method that I used to do this, guys, was again probably still a little bit quick and down and dirty, but it did the trick, I think. So we disconnected the vacuum advance from the distributor to make sure that we were getting sort of a clean idle. Then we connected the vacuum gauge that I was using off to manifold vacuum on the carburetor. And then we went ahead and turned in those idle screws equally, eighth of a turn at a time, until we could actually hear that engine sort of roughly, starting to want to quit. And then we stopped. And then we started adjusting those idle screws back out an eighth of a turn at a time. And we kept on doing that and resetting the idle and keeping on, gunning the gas to reset the idle until we actually got the vacuum gauge to sort of max out. We got out to about 17 or so on the vacuum gauge. And that's about where this thing maxed out. That's about as much vacuum as it was going to make for us at idle. And once we got there, we stopped. Then we made sure that we reset the idle right where I wanted it, which was right around 800. And then we stopped. And I think he's in pretty good shape now. Yeah. All right. That did it, I think. So fans are definitely working. What we don't necessarily know right now is whether or not the fans will shut off at some point. So I think that'll be easiest to tell in the morning when you get in to drive it, whether or not the fans come on then. And you'll be able to see that through your voltage. So there is definitely, because these things do suck up a fair amount of juice, there is definitely a voltage drop. As soon as you have the fans kick on. That's how I notice it in my car too, is when the fans are on, I see that voltage needle drop significantly. So that's the easiest way to tell whether your fans are running. But the good news is, your vents are now working. So that means, the biggest thing about that is you can shift the heat to the floor.
Yeah.
So you can get your feet warm, because that's always like the cold part. That's when you want the heat on, you want it on your feet and on the floor. So that's it. Big thanks to Evil Energy. Even though we could not make the specific radiator fit, and I will talk to those guys about that and figure out maybe what I did wrong. We did get the shroud to work, and they got the fans to work, and they're working great. So super happy with getting that product from them. And ultimately, I'll put a link to the fan kit and the radiator kit in the description. And just be cautious about dimensions. Make sure you measure that before you use it on your project. But it's a great kit, and it looks like a really well-built radiator, so I'm kind of bummed we couldn't use it, but now sort of excited that we have a leftover radiator for another point in time, maybe another project car.
Yeah.
There's the answer. We have to get another car because we have a leftover radiator. So that sounds like a good reasoning to me.
Yeah, that's it.
Let's go tell them. All right, guys. So thanks for watching. As always, like and subscribe if you would, and keep on firing away in the comments. And we will see you next time. Until then, keep throwing wrenches.